Good everyone, on this video, and today we have a review on the Chinese H-81 A-2. This, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much a P-40B. If you want the closest resemblance to this aircraft, look in the US tech tree at the P-40C. So the H-81 A-2 is a Chinese formerly pack vehicle and starts at rank 2, battle rating 2.3. Excuse me. However, this aircraft got removed a while ago and ended up coming back as a GE premium. Now, personally, I can understand why they did that because 20 bucks for this thing, I think it was a little bit steep. But we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss the GE side of things. That's why I'm doing the re-review of this aircraft because the previous review was based off it being a pack and also at 2.7, which it didn't deserve. So now I can be a bit more fair on this thing, which I think I actually have to give Gaijin credit for. If there's one thing I like, it's when they give birds another chance, and they certainly gave this thing another chance. So, of course, with it costing 850 golden eagles, it's a good middle ground. It's not too expensive, but it's not too, shall I say, cheap for a rank 2 premium. And as a result, it can perfectly back up the Chinese 2.3 tank lineup and can do some decent work in RRB as well. However, it's not the best at it, and there's a good reason why, but we'll cover that in a moment. Now, of course, in terms of premium competition, it doesn't really have many. The only real competitors are the Chinese Key 45 high/tie, which, yeah, I wouldn't really call that much of a competitor, especially with the slight nerf it received a couple of patches back. And the other competitor is arguably best, that being the Chinese A6M2, which you can see down there. If you've not watched the review on either the Kai 45 or the A6M2, those will be linked in the description below, so you can go take a look at those. If you really just don't care about China and only want to dump a little bit of money into it, take a look at the Hawk 3 review, that's also in the description as well. That will also help you out as well. But of course, for those that are here for the H-81A2, we can get into some good detail about it. So of course, as I mentioned, it's a early P40 model, closely resembling a B model due to the nose. And you can distinctly tell this because of not only the intake scoop, but also the 50 caliber machine guns mounted in the engine cowling. And of course the 30 caliber machine guns mounted in the wings as well. Now, these early P40s were decent, and obviously this aircraft is based off the Flying Tigers. And if you're not sure about those, there's literally loads of documentaries on them. Go take a look. It's a really interesting story. I highly suggest it. But of course, this thing does have its benefits over something like the Kai 45 and the Hawk, but also has its flaws when you compare it to the other two premiums I just mentioned. I'm not going to include the Zero in this, purely because that's a rank 3 and is also more expensive. The only other rank 2 and obviously rank 1 premiums I can compare this to is the Kai 45. So for this purpose, I'm going to compare it to the Kai 45. Bit of a unusual comparison, I know, but just roll with it because it's the only real option I have here. Of course, there is options in the tech tree to talisman, but I'm not going to include that as well. But of course, when it comes to the X-ray, we can take a look at the armament as I previously mentioned. We have 250 calibers in the nose with 235 rounds of gun, and each wing gun has its own ammunition supply, the inner guns being 500 and the outer guns being 480. This is perfectly adequate. The firepower is pretty good when you set it to 400 meters convergence and also universal belts in the 12.7s and stealth belts in the 7.62s. But then we come to the flaws of this aircraft, and there's actually quite a few. As I did mention in the Russian P40 review, if you haven't watched that, go take a look at the new review of it. The problem is that the Allison engine is a little bit crap for high altitude combat. But the H-81 has a additional kick in the bollocks given that it's a earlier P40. And sadly, that translates into the engine as well. This is a Allison V1710 33 12-cylinder inline with a max power of just 860 on WEP, 100%, and 1040 on WEP. That's not great, and it's even worse at high altitude. If you take this thing above 3.5 kilometers, about 4 kilometers, you will really start to feel the power drop off. And you'll struggle to accelerate, you'll struggle to gain speed, just in general. And compared to the competition that you're going to be fighting, you're really going to struggle. And it's a real big ask to get this engine to work so hard, when half the time you're still outperformed even on WEP at low altitude. And that's really what lets the H-81 down, unfortunately. But the saving grace is that it's at 2.3, and not 2.7, where it can potentially fight aircraft like the XP-50 or the J-21s. The worst this thing will fight is a US Marine Corps Corsair, which will kick its teeth in, but you get my point. And it could also fight Zeros as well, which will also kick its teeth in if you're not prepared. In terms of the extra ordnance capacity of this aircraft, it does have a single bomb, a single 500-pound bomb. This bomb I've used in tank forces to good extent when Chinese tanks came out. About 2 years ago, I believe they came out. And as a result, I used this thing alongside it. Obviously, to start off with, I used the Hawk because I had the Hawk. But then, of course, as I got up in BR, I used this. And this plane was very good for that. However, in this day and age, China has some better ground strike aircraft in the tech tree, which I would recommend over this. For those examples, I recommend the Chinese P-40E and also aircraft like the Ki-44, the V-11, the A-29, and the HS-123. Those aircraft will generally do you better. Of course, comparing it to the Ki-45 in terms of performance, the Ki-45 does give the H-81 a run for its money, but of course the Ki-45 has much worse armament, doesn't have any ground strike capabilities, yet it should, and outclimbs the H-81 and also outspeeds it, and also comes with a back gunner to defend itself. As a result, comparing it to the Ki-45 is awkward, but it is still doable. For 850 Golden Eagles though, I would personally recommend this aircraft. Whilst it isn't the best, and it isn't going to stand up against the majority of targets it will meet in a one-on-one dogfight at higher altitudes, it will certainly get the job done, and you'll be able to get up some points on the board, and even use a Singer ground forces as well, unlike the Ki-45. And of course, the Ki-45 is a mixed bag in itself. Don't forget to check out the review for that if you haven't already. But anyway, let's go into the battle and let's take a look at the H-81 A-2. Let's just say this plane was actually quite hard to get footage for, and there's good reason for that. I'll point out on the enemy team why. But of course, this match isn't very long. It does end in me being shot down, but to be fair, I probably could have avoided it, but I just couldn't be bothered. I got the amount of kills that I was looking for. I was looking for at least 3. That's my rule, by the way. At least 3 kills for a review. That's just how I've always done it. If I can get less than that, but it's a funny moment for the review, then I'll do that as well. But I look for at least 3 kills. I'm not one of those kind of reviewers that looks for like ace games all the time. I'll look for a good middle ground. And on the enemy team, there's quite a few competitors which I mentioned in the beginning. Obviously, we have the Swedish J-22, we have a F4U-1A Corsair, we also have a single P-39N. The P-39N completely outclasses this aircraft in pretty much every way other than turn rate. And sadly, that's just what you're going to have to deal with. But luckily for me, the majority of the enemy team decided to go low to go after our ground pounders. Of course, over there you can see Shadow in his AR-196. He decided to lend me a hand after I actually struggled to find that footage for this aircraft. And of course, skipping ahead a couple of minutes just to get into the battle, you'll notice an immediate problem. I've been outclimbed by the Corsair, and well, he's actually going to lead to my downfall later. So don't forget about that Corsair, you'll have to see him later. Originally, the original plan was to dive down and assist the team. However, I saw this P-39 potentially going for Shadow. Well, no anymore, it's not. Kill number 1. of course, keep an eye on the Corsair and Shadow, because Shadow needed some help. And he was struggling against the B-18, and Shadow was like, I've got him distracted, I don't know what I can do here, and I said, well, he's about to learn the hard way. And there we go, kill number 2. But of course, it's not all sunshine and butterflies, unfortunately, because we've got a lot of enemy aircraft beneath us. Just because they're beneath us doesn't mean they can't overwhelm us. I'm going for the P-40E here because A, he's the highest, and B, he's the most important threat, at least in the area. And of course, the J-20 isn't that much of a threat. Trust me, even on my ping, the guns suck in that thing. I do take a shot at him anyway to score a couple of hits, but of course my priority target is the P-40. That's the aircraft I want to go for. But don't forget, we do have the Corsair above us. We have to be careful of that. Of course, unbeknownst to me and Shadow, because we're too busy dealing with this in the dogfight, we've got a problem. The J-22s have seen what we're doing, and they're on the way. But continuing on, Shadow does manage to get some hits on the P-40. I'm going for a shot, but then a friendly I-16 almost shoots through me to try and take the kill. In typical fashion, I was originally going to say to Shadow, if you can, just shoot through the I-16, teach him a lesson, but unfortunately Shadow never got the chance because the I-16 took down the P-40 before that was possible. But as you can see on the enemy team, we have quite a few Swedish aircraft left, and we also have the Corsair that's coming in from high altitude. And to top it all off, as you saw in the damage model just down there, yes, I just got harried and hit by flak. Lovely. Now, it seems the J-22 pilot was a bit confused on what to do, but originally he was going to go for me. But then he makes a very fatal mistake. Not really sure why, he had all the advantages here. I'm not sure what was flowing through his head at the time, but I don't think both his brain cells are rubbing together. He makes a very steep dive on Shadow, but forgets about the J-22's compression, and decides to become a loft conversion. I mean, considering the damage to the house, you could put him on the TV show Cowboy Builders for that job, but oh well. I suppose you could call that a maneuver kill for Shadow, but unfortunately Shadow didn't really pick a good plane for this sort of job. Here comes another B-18, we're obviously going for it, me, the I-16 and Shadow here. I did manage to get some good hits in and shoot down the B-18, but unfortunately Shadow's just been crit by the F4U Corsair. And for some reason, even though Shadow lost both his floats, he's still flying fine. Don't ask me why, he didn't even lose his fuel. I don't know what he tried to achieve, but that's my 4th and final kill for this match. I pull up to at least take the Corsair with me. We both shred each other, we both shred each other's engines. He loses his engine, I lose mine, and then the I-16 comes in and finishes the job. And of course, Shadow's slowly but surely going down to the Corsair, there he goes. And even though I'm out of thrust, I always like to make sure my birds get on the ground nicely, because that way I don't have to pay as much repair costs, because yeah, I'm not much of a cheapskate. And I'm frantically looking around for a good place to park the plane, and I eventually find one. A gap just between these two apartment complexes. That's probably one of the smoothest landings you're ever going to get. But that is that. 4 kills, 3 assists, but unfortunately a death, and we do end up losing this battle, as I don't believe the I-16 makes it back to base, and the IL-2 probably hit a tree or something. As I said, I think it's a very good plane compared to its other premium competition. If there was another plane like, I don't know, a premium P66 Vanguard or maybe a premium I-16, I'd probably put my money towards that rather than this. But for now, for 850 Golden Eagles, whilst it is a tad steep, I would wait for a sale before getting this thing. And I think you'll have some good fun in it, that's for definite. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys off. I hope you enjoyed today's review on the H-81 A2. Well, I should say re-review. And I will catch you all on the next one.